Final Fantasy 16 is the latest in the Final Fantasy series from Square Enix. All of us have played the game, and what we're going to be doing is sharing our spoiler-filled, that means not spoiler-free,
Mini
review
spoilers.
of Final Fantasy 16. I'm just going to lay this out here real quick. The other guys have a lot of experience with the Final Fantasy games. However, I do not. This is my first ever Final Fantasy game. And to get us kicked off, we got a lot of different things we want to talk about, a lot of different aspects. So let's just talk about our quick overview thoughts of the game, and we'll start with Nick.
All right. So I really enjoyed the game. I do have some nitpicks. I felt it was a little too easy. I had some issues with the pacing, but I overall really loved the game. I kind of described it as a 7 out of 10 game with 10 out of 10 moments. But these are true 10 out of 10 moments. Like, these are hallmarks in the entire Final Fantasy series / video gaming period. And I know after I beat this one boss, I'm like, hey, everybody, there's like 20 hours in. There's like one of the most amazing bosses you'll ever fight. And then after you guys both got to that boss, like we were talking about it. So that's how great some sections of this game are.
Yeah, and it doesn't really it's wild because when it comes to the boss fights and when it comes to those moments, it doesn't take its foot off the pedal. On those moments, it's the other moments that I think start to kind of bring it down just a little bit, like with the side quests. Some of the side quests anyway start to bulk it out a little bit and make it a little longer than I think it needs to be. But personally, I think the story was incredible. It didn't end the way I wanted it to, but that's okay. I thought it was I thought it told a good story. Clive is one of my favorite, if not my favorite lead in a Final Fantasy game. I feel that he is the most he shows the most emotion that we've seen out of a performance, especially when we're so used to stiff board protagonists like Cloud and Squall and Lightning, and just mainly from the modern ones anyway. To see that and then to actually get really attached to even the supporting cast, I thought that his whether it be his brother or Jill or his partner there with one eye, who I had his name a second ago, and now
Gav,
Gav, who I ended up liking a whole lot. Which, there's a scene at the end where it's kind of panning in the hideaway, and it shows all the characters, and all of them, right? Like you've spent all this time with them, and that's Final Fantasy to me, right? Like it's it's who you've spent the time with. These characters and their relationships that are with everyone else, and I feel that was super strong. And was very happy. I shed some tears near the end, as I think, I think most people, I was watching some reactions of people finishing it up, and I was like, wait, I'm not the only one that kind of got a little teary eyed here. But, great game with some flaws, and we'll get into the flaws when it comes to the gameplay as it goes. But Marty, let's hear your impressions.
Yeah,
especially as a first-time Final Fantasy player.
Yeah, so I'm having to measure this just up against video games itself, and I do like story-driven games. I really enjoyed the story in this one, but Nick, like you said, there were some really high moments that were followed by some really kind of boring moments. And I'm not talking about side quest. I'm talking about the main quest line, where you may finish doing an epic fight, epic battle, there'd be an epic cutscene or something, and all of a sudden you feel like, okay, I'm just doing fetch quest, which seems like they should have been side quest. And now I understand some of the part of the reason is they're making you go talk to people and find out what's kind of driving the story. So they're making you go through the motions of maybe gathering some stuff to fill in some gaps of a story, some stuff that's need to be done. Totally get that. But that just set the pacing off for me. The combat was incredible. I really like this style of combat. The Devil May Cry, the over-the-top action, like with Bayonetta series, I've really come to like that. So this is not a turn-based game. So I'm very interested to see what you guys think too, because I know there's been a lot of discussion of, I like turn-based Final Fantasy versus the action-based Final Fantasy. So I can't wait to hear your thoughts as classic Final Fantasy fans to go, do you like this? Do you not? That sort of thing too, as we get into it. So like y'all, it's not a 10. If I was to give it a score, we haven't been given scores, but if we're giving halvesies, I'm going to put it like about an 8.5, which is really good for me.
Yeah, I'm at an 8. I'm probably 8.5 as well.
Yeah. Bennett,
I'm in that range.
What'd you
What was
say?
that, Nick?
I would say I'm in that range too. Like it was
In
like
that
an
range,
eight,
too.
8.5 for me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it was
but
so close to being just like a 9 or a 10 out of 10 though.
Mhm.
why don't we dive into combat a little bit? We can chat combat. Combat obviously right out the gate is something we're going to notice. You only play as Clive in this game. You do not play as anybody else, and it's a very action focused game. It's also very much an ability focused game. Like
hmm
um, as you begin to collect the icons and as you begin to level up those different abilities, your swinging of a sword is very cool, but unless you got kind of like the limit break on or whatnot, or the not the extra
You're
part where you
pre-primed, yeah.
yeah, then you're not like doing too much damage with any
Mhm.
sword that you get, right? Like it's really you're basically working on staggering an enemy to get them buckled down and then unleash as many special moves as you possibly can on them, to create this huge, the explosions and graphics and everything like that. And it is very fast paced. But I enjoyed the combat, if not feeling maybe near the end like a little repetitive. But that could have been just on me. But it was really like I found the icons that I really like to use, and then I kind of just had a flow. It was like, okay,
hmm
I got a bunch of random small enemies. Well, they're gonna die this way, and it was fun and it looks fancy. And then I got a little heavier enemy. It's like, hey, well, I'm gonna do this, and then you got a boss. Now the bosses varied it up a little bit because the bosses also have 3 different ways you fight them. You fight a boss just as Clive against a human, and then there's one where you'll be Clive against their bigger form, and then there's also the one where you are Ifrit and fighting, and then there's the icon battles, which are kind of their mini games, right? Like they are their own things. They're cinematic moments. Um, I don't even know if I lost one of them or even came close. I'm
Yeah, I
not
don't think
really
you're supposed to, right? You're supposed to feel powerful, right?
yeah,
It's a
yeah,
big
which is okay. They're super fun to watch and they're exciting. I think, uh, and not Nick. Why don't you give me your? Because I'll come back to a couple points,
yeah.
especially coming through older Final Fantasies and up to this. But all in all, if not a little repetitive, and more, but I did enjoy the combat of this. I thought
Yeah.
it held my attention throughout 50 plus hours of gameplay.
Yeah. No, the combat was fun, no doubt about it. It was great. But as you mentioned, as you get more and more abilities, just cycling through your abilities, and it felt a lot like Scarlet Nexus, which is a game I know
Yep.
Matt and I both
Yeah, yeah,
played.
yeah.
You're just like mashing, you're just flipping around and mashing through your abilities.
Yeah.
And then you're like, sure, you can throw out like a magic first time 4 combo or whatever, but that's like kind of in between. Like everything's on cooldown, whatever. I'll just do this. But you could also just dance around, and that brings me to the game was a little too easy because dodging was not hard. You can also parry, which does require more timing, but you can also just not do it. You can just dodge, right? And they also give you Titan, who also has easier block timing. But the thing this game really needed in order to add more challenge was a stamina bar. Like, if I missed a dodge, I would just dodge again, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so there's no real penalty for missing a dodge.
And once I got the item that powered up your dodge, like there's a trinket you get that you equip that makes it so that the attack you do after a dodge is stronger.
Oh,
Like
the counter, yeah.
I was dodging all the time. Yeah, it's the one where then it actually changes the camera angle of your
Mm.
dodge. Like you dodge and he kind of does this cool like little animation where he lights on fire and you go. I did that. That was all I was doing the rest of the game. Once I got that item, that I was dodging my face off when I wasn't doing an ability or whatever.
Yeah.
It feels cool. It does give you that power fantasy kind of feel of like, especially when you have these abilities and you're fighting little enemies and they're all dying really fast around you, and it looks awesome and it's kind of visceral and fun, but a little repetitive at times.
I didn't mind that it was an action RPG either. I know Marty touched on this, but the last couple games have not been turn-based. Also, like 15, 7 remake. So I mean, Final Fantasy's moved towards this action RPG as the combat staple for a while now.
Yeah, Marty, did you like the combat?
I did. I like the fluidity of it, but I did see a lot of the
Repetitiveness.
Repetition.
repetitiveness.
Yeah,
Make up a word. Let's just make up new words here.
Sure.
So yeah, it's one of those things. Like after I got Titan, and a couple of the others, I can't remember who I used. There were 3 staple, and when I got a new one, I would check it out. It's like I like this other one better. And you had a lot of abilities that you can unlock and use and build up. I really only stuck to about 3 per icon, and by the end, I had my icons and abilities set. So I felt like I was wasting or not seeing a lot of the other abilities just because I got used to using these. Now, having come from Diablo 4, which I had been playing, you got a lot of skills in that, but you kind of pick and choose what you want as you go down the skill tree. So it's not like the others were available to me because I didn't select them. But in this game, when you get an icon, you automatically get some of the abilities, but you may not even use that icon at all.
It was nice though. They gave you free respecs, so if you wanted to switch over, you could.
You could try
You're right.
So
You get used to the ones you like.
What did everybody end up using? Like, what was your main kind of build?
I was Phoenix because I got used to the dash. Like you can do the charge lunge, which is okay, had okay range, but the dash is just like such a great feeling. And it was, and then I used Shiva and Rama for most of the game.
What about you, Marty?
I used Phoenix, Titan, and at the end, who was I using? Oh my gosh, the light icon.
Bahamut.
Yep.
Light.
Bahamut.
Yeah. Yep. So, did any of you guys mess with mastering and then moving them to different icons?
Yeah.
Like you taking abilities out of one and putting them in another.
Yeah, like I splashed Ramu. Like sometimes I had Titan for a while, but I splashed out, and I would use Ramu's like Thunder AOE with that, and then the big charge.
Yeah. So if you master, like you can level these up, and then if you level them up all the way to mastering, what mastering one of them does is it makes it so that if you like the Phoenix uppercut, you could actually slot it in the Ramu icon set. So therefore you have a little bit more flexibility with moving stuff around. For instance, the only Bahamut ability I used was the one that launches some orbs and it like auto attacks. Yeah. So I didn't use Bahamut, but I used that ability inside of I think it was Titans maybe because I didn't end up using block because I was dodging all the time. So yeah, but mainly I was Phoenix, Titan, and who else did I end up using?
I also used a lot of the electricity one, whichever one that was.
Ramu. Oh yeah, Ramu. Yeah, his ultimate was really great, and I used that quite a bit because that's such a strong single. But I ended up using Shiva quite a bit. I liked her AOE.
She was great crowd control.
Yeah, her AOE.
Her ultimate was just so good though. It was too good. I like an entire like 20
Diamond Dust, man.
Yeah, you did Diamond Dust, and you just killed like 20 enemies. I'm like, all right.
It felt good though. It was, and you see all the characters dying. So ended up so that's where I was mainly using those ones. Odin, I feel like, is a game in itself. Odin's ability really is something that I think if you got used to could get really strong and powerful, but I didn't really have. I got him late and I didn't want to learn.
I played it some. I did like the idea of what you pull out his sword and then you charge up. The more you hit, you charge up like a counter. And then you could unleash it. Yeah, I was getting pretty good at dealing a lot of damage with that sucker. So what I would do is build it up, switch to another icon and play with it. And then when I staggered them, I'd switch back and just unload with that special sword into the staggered.
It does some huge damage.
Yeah, it was the hardest hitting attack, I think, in the game.
I think so too. Yeah, Odin had a very, very strong attack. And
by the way, I will say this: I know Nick, you bought the special version of the game, the collector's edition with the large miniature back there. If they sold a pack of each of the icons, I would want them because I think the model design or the character design for each of those is absolutely fabulous.
Yes,
I think they all look so good.
Sorry, one more thing about the combat. Yeah. This was 100% the kaiju game I've always wanted, like giant monster battles.
Yes.
Like it was so good. Like the moments felt so great.
Well, but it was kind of on autoplay. You know, you would do a few things. It's like, okay, press the square for the cinematic.
But sometimes they did let you fight, right? Especially and the one that do we want to just jump into our favorite fight, or at least my favorite fight?
Sure.
The Titan Lost fight, right? But the reason I love that so much is you had a lot of control over during that fight. So it wasn't just a cinematic, moment.
But it wasn't until Bahamut that you turned into Ifrit and Phoenix together, right? That's when, that was a lot of fun. You fight him up in space.
Yeah, that was the space battle, right? No, that's a kaiju thing too. That's like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla in space.
Have either of you, and it's probably only Nick maybe played this. I might have brought it up at one point. Have you played Asura's Wrath?
Yes.
This
This was
game was a
old,
lot.
old PlayStation 2, right?
Yeah,
It
I
was an
think it
older
was
game.
PS2.
PS2, yeah.
This game was a lot like Asura's Wrath, and it's wild. If you haven't played Asura's Wrath, like go just watch YouTube clips of Asura's Wrath and like some of the fights in it. The parts where there's constant punching back and forth and you're mashing square, and it's just that's straight out of that game. It's an anime. I don't know if Asura's Wrath is a manga or an anime, but I feel like it was from something like that. And the fights are just over the top, like this almost. And a lot of it brought me back to like key moments from Asura's Wrath. But regardless, yeah, loved all the fights. I think my favorite fight was the Bahamut Ifrit one, which was just super cool. Next to maybe, I don't know. Yeah, probably that one. I mean, the Titan one was
Titan
awesome.
was
Yeah,
Titan
they're
was
all
pretty
they were
epic.
they were all so great. It's
But
hard
let's
to
talk.
like nail it down.
But talking about, since we're talking about the big fights, honestly, the final fight with Ultima,
Yeah.
I was kind of getting tired of doing it. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it
would
was
you
maybe
ju-
one phase too long, right?
Would you
It
just
was
die?
also no, that was but see the thing is it was a very Final Fantasy last boss. The only thing I'd say it was missing, and this comes back to combat, and I'm going to take this down on combat as something I felt was missing from like a Final Fantasy game. And there was really no like status elements. There wasn't too many like you didn't really get poisoned a whole lot, or like you didn't get you know I don't know.
Burned or
Well, yeah,
dazed.
there's what's that? Sleep, stone, you know, and you would need to come out of those. But I think a lot of that comes from that you only could play as Clive, so you didn't have another character to like get you out of a problem like that. But yeah, that was or like the last boss usually has like these one-shot kill, and you have to try to figure out how to not die by the single attack. And I didn't really, maybe I was overpowered at the point, but I didn't really feel that the last boss. It was more or less just an endurance. Like, can I get, you know, because I had enough potions. I don't know if you all upgraded all your potions.
Yeah, I had like 9 potions, right?
Yeah, I had as many potions as I think you could get, and they were all super strong. So
that was the other thing that made the game a little too easy. Like I did have a couple game overs, but sometimes I was just playing like whatever, like this game is easy, and I would get cocky and I would die, and then they started you off with like full potions or like.
And generally it was half health. It was like
like the couple of times I actually died, it became super easy because I'm like, oh, I'm just back at this checkpoint. Right?
That was big for me. That actually, I brought that up too when we were. I think we were playing, and I was like, dude, are you just like it hits you at the checkpoint and gives you all your potions? I kind of just want to restart, but at the same time, I'm like, but it was long, and maybe these boss fights are long, and I can see why they don't want people to just start all the way over each time. Like I totally understand it. But to Nick's point, it did make the game a little easier.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, we've been millennia, okay?
This is true. We have.
I spent one of my nights. My wife was like watching me play Elden Ring, and she's like, "Are you still fighting that same boss?"
There's no easy mode for millennia.
I'm like, yes, I'm still fighting
Elden,
this boss.
Elden Ring here. Both Nick and I finished Elden Ring, and we like a challenge. And honestly, these old all Final Fantasy games are generally pretty challenging. Like you'll hit some fights that are like, oh, I need to figure out how to get by this. And this was just kind of a, you know, they wanted to tell a story. They wanted
it's for the experience, right? Yeah.
So talking about the bosses, I was surprised at you know, I'm so used to bosses having different phases, and like the final boss with Ultima. Yeah, you had Ultima, then you fought like the icon, the big, you know, had the kaiju fight, and then you fought Ultima again. But there wasn't like a lot of phases. And when I think of, you know, whether it be World of Warcraft or probably the last guy, like earlier this year when I played Metroid Prime, you know, those bosses are, you get to a certain point, they start doing something different. They get to a certain point, they start doing something different again. I really didn't feel that in this game with the bosses, that there were a ton of different phases. You had to learn as you fought.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there were phases, but there wasn't like mechanics you had to like change your game for. You're just along for the ride. Like, and again, it's an endurance thing. It's just you gotta like, you know, they change how you fight the boss each time. So you might just be fighting it as Clive, you know, on the ground with your sword, or you're gonna be flying around up in space, and the next thing you know, you're flying in space again, and there's a big clash, and then you're doing R1s and squares when they tell you to. You know, I can see how someone might knock on it for that. I'll say there was a huge omission in this game. Like I don't know why. Maybe it's DLC, but I feel like Leviathan is like super missed in this
No,
game.
they talked about it.
They mentioned Leviathan, right?
It's the missing icon.
Oh, so they brought it up, but they didn't.
Yes.
Okay.
It was in one of the big mural, right? There was actually Leviathan is pictured, but they talked about how Leviathan is the lost icon. So yeah, that's probably a pretty good guess for a DLC.
Yeah, yeah. Leviathan is it has been in every Final Fantasy game, period. So it's just like, again, though, I get that. Okay, yeah, and I do remember that popping up in the story, but regardless, it not being one of the main 8 that they selected for the story, I was like, I mean, those would have been some pretty cool powers.
Visuals wise, you happy with it?
Yes,
I think it's one of the best looking games on the system.
It is, but AJ actually pointed out something to me, and I didn't notice until he pointed it out. But he actually felt like this was a step backwards from 15. And I think he's right in a lot of levels because 15 used Unreal and the facial animations were better. And I think some of the texturing was better too. It was still great in 16, but I actually think in some ways it was a step back. But I understand why Square did it because if you license the Unreal Engine, you have to pay royalties over X amount of dollars. And I'm sure Square was over the millions where they were paying the most. So because they ended up using their own engine, it didn't cost them as much money, but I think it was a slight step backwards in terms of graphic fidelity and facial animation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been years since I played 15. I haven't touched that game in a long time. So I remember 15 looking good at the time, but I also know walking around the world of 16, I was like mostly jaw drop at like the backgrounds and the character models and stuff.
I think 16 had better art direction in general.
Oh yeah.
So I think that covered for a lot of maybe the technical deficiencies.
I will say I played in graphics mode and had 0 issues with it.
I flopped back and forth. I could not make up my mind. Okay. I was first half of the game I played in performance, and then I switched to graphics, and I was like, oh, I think I like this better. Then I went back to performance, and I'm like, oh no, I think I'm good with this. And then like the final whatever, I think I played in graphics. I couldn't make up my mind. I thought they both looked good. I liked the frame rate of the performance mode, but I think the fidelity of the graphics mode was noticeable. So I was just kind of like, I'm back and fight. Maybe we'll get that PS5 Pro and be able to have both or something. But
going up to 8K.
Yeah.
Which nobody has a TV of.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can't display
it. Voice acting, I thought was actually pretty good.
Incredible
between all the characters.
Yeah.
Yes.
To give a big shout out, Ben Starr is the voice of Clive, and I give this guy a lot of props. He's a huge Final Fantasy fan himself, and this character meant a lot to him. I've watched some interviews from him, and you could tell he put everything into this. He's even said he's getting a tattoo, a Rosaria tattoo, and he is just like he loves that he's part of this. It's cool to have someone like that champion your game and give the performance that he gave. I mean, when you felt his emotion when his brother died, you felt his emotion, especially that last scene where you don't know, when Dion, Clive, and what's that, Joshua. And Joshua are going off. It's like, they're not all coming back, right? I knew at least Dion was gonna die. He was going to die. Like he had even said it.
I liked Dion.
Dion was a great character.
Love Dion. Characters. I thought his character. I would play a whole.
I was just sad you couldn't play him, right?
Dude, if Dion gets a DLC that you get to play as Dion and play as a dragoon.
It's a dragoon, I know, right?
Forget, and I can go back in his story a little bit more.
Oh, yeah.
I would love that. I think Dion is actually he's a top tier character for me.
Speaking of voice acting, what a brutal scene when he threw the spear.
Oh yeah,
and ended up killing his dad. Oh my god!
Oh, when he killed his dad, yeah. Oh, and then you find out Ultima was just the kid. The kid was just Ultima.
Right. I loved the resolution with the mom. It wasn't like a pat close because it would have felt so good, like if Joshua or Clive had gotten revenge on her, right? Mm-hmm. But in some ways, this is just better, right? She just loses her mind.
Yeah,
she just loses it.
But and we'll get to story in a second. And
sorry, can I do one more voice acting shout out?
Yes.
Ralph Ineson made this maybe my absolute favorite Sid in a series full of Sids.
It was good.
So I know nothing about Sid, but I absolutely loved that character. I think you said a lot of Final Fantasy
He's in pretty
has
much
a
everyone.
Sid.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, Marty, what's interesting about this Sid is that his daughter, Mid, who you meet in the last, that's actually in kind of like story. That's the real Sid that's been in like all the other ones. Sid is the one who like makes the airship and like is in like the airship captain of everyone is Sid, but pretty much, right? Like, and that's
in 15 there was Sydney.
She was the shop, but she
she was the car mechanic.
Yeah. She was the car mechanic, but regardless, Sid's known to be an airship.
But yeah, he's basically the airship captain in the game.
So when the side quest when she's building the airship, I thought it was really, really neat throwback. I'm like, oh, there's the Sid that I know. Her name's Mid. But it threw me for the loop, if I will drop into story here in a second, but the time jump and then you're now Sid. But yeah.
God, I was going to have something else.
Anything on voice acting?
Yes. Shoot. Never mind. It'll come back to me to say. It's one of those things that I'm going to wait till they finish this point before I say it, and then I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, good.
So it may come back to me. So before we get to story, which I know is a big part of this, music was absolutely phenomenal.
Chef's kiss.
Phenomenal.
Not a bad track on it. Like I think the Titans theme was a little different than most of the other one. I think the Titan boss fight anyway. That was kind of the techno heavy. Really.
Sorkin will do that though. Like he'll just throw that kind of like either like a rock or techno track in the middle of a boss.
But the main like battle theme was always amazing throughout. The epic boss fight themes, the being able to change your music in the hideaway and like all of those themes were really cool. The music was amazing all the way through.
There are also so many homages and love letters to previous Final Fantasy games within the music, and you'll notice that as it themes. And one thing that a lot of games are doing really well now is the dynamic music, where like depending on what fight you're in or the part of the fight, the music will change and it kind of crescendos or drops accordingly. So I thought it was really well done. But I think, Marty, as you play other Final Fantasy games, if this kind of opens up your interest in them, you'll hear a lot of those little musical callbacks in 16 soundtrack.
There was one I was disappointed in. In the demo, there was a song, and I had to go look this up. It's called The Lion and the Hare, which is a song that just stuck in my mind. It had this hook that just stuck with me, and it was never used again in the rest of the game.
It wasn't?
I don't remember it ever being used again because I heard it again in the credits and I went, oh yeah, that was a great song. Why didn't they use that again? So, it was a song they were just used while they were like walking around or exploring, but the structure of the song was really cool.
It's on the EP that is currently available on streaming services. Like you can go listen to it. And it says the Nisa Del file, which is an area, which isn't a location. So it might be a location specific song that only plays there, Marty. So it's probably in the game. You just likely didn't pick up on it. I'm listening to it right now, but it says the Lion and a Hare, and it says the Nisa Defiel, which is one of the zones. So maybe we'll jump back into that zone and see if it's playing. But the soundtrack's a star, man. Like I can't wait to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, I just one of those things. I know they're coming out, all of them on CD. Being a vinyl guy, I would love to have it, but it's too many vinyls.
It'll be out of vinyl. So this is something in all Final Fantasy games. They all have incredible soundtracks, but what they're going to be known for, and you're going to get this now on this one, Marty, is that when you hear specific tracks, you will instantly be like transported back to that character or that scene or whatever happened there, right? Like, and that's where things get emotional when you like when they play these. You're like, and that's where nostalgia comes in. 10 years from now, you'll hear one of these songs, and you're like, oh man, I want to play 16 again because now I'm like all of those memories from this game rush back, and that's what we've had just every one of these titles.
Yeah. And it just builds, right?
Yeah.
We talked about Sid already. We talked about the airships. Also the two knights who might as well have been Biggs and Wedge, right? Spiritually, we know who they are. That wasn't their names, but spiritually, we know.
Who would they have been?
It was that pair of knights that escorts you in the
Sir
beginning.
Wade. Wade.
Oh, the very beginning. Okay, we never saw
Well,
him again.
and then
Okay.
Wade was in it for the rest of the game.
Right, and
anyway.
he was the one who survived, right?
Yeah.
And then, but and also all the icons, right? We've known these as summons or as whatever from other games. So it's just a character library. It's a universe that obviously it's standalone, but it builds on top of each other. And the music is the same way. The materia theme, like when you see the world crystals, it plays that a classic lick from the old Final Fantasy theme. So you hear it and you're like,
the piano crescendo or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah.
So the music is also its own character in the Final Fantasy games.
And that's very Final Fantasy, right? Like people are like, this isn't a Final Fantasy game due to the action combat or whatever. It's like, no, this is, as the thing we said, the music, the characters.
Oh, the enemies, right? The story, the Marlboros, right? Yeah, you see like these same enemies repeated. Yeah.
It bleeds Final Fantasy. Just because it's not turn-based doesn't make it not Final Fantasy. I mean, it's a Final Fantasy game.
And the final thing, the story. Did you like the story?
Yes. I love the story. Let's get back real quick. Let's jump back to the story. I said I knew Dion and was not going to make it, but I didn't know who. When Joshua died in there, I really thought Clive was going to make it out of there. I was like, oh well, at least
they can't kill everybody, right?
I was like, at least Clive, and then Clive doesn't even make it, and I was like, damn, my guys.
Wait a minute. Somebody's got to make it.
No one made it. I mean, I guess
Did you not watch the post-credit scene?
There was the narration in the book, right?
Yes. Who was the book written by?
It was written by Clive, right? Oh, it was Joshua?
Joshua.
Oh, okay.
So the question is, who lived, Clive or Joshua?
But I think he also kept a memoir, right? They had records, like the secret society that followed him around was keeping records too. So it might not have been fully written by Joshua right afterwards.
I think one of them made it.
But he's also the Phoenix, right? We thought that he died a couple of times already.
I thought Clive was going to bring him back after he took all of Phoenix's powers there at the end. I thought he was going to bring Joshua back, but yeah, I don't know. I guess it's something we'll debate unless they tie it up with a DLC. I really think they're going to leave this just up to us having to debate it.
I think it's pretty definitive Clive died though, because
really
the star that Jill wishes on literally winks out of existence, as he's passing away.
That's just the end of Magic, though.
Sure, but it's very symbolic too, and also they did a very narrative storytelling thing where one life ends, another begins. Right, as soon as he died, the baby was born. Right, the one that they saved, that Gav, started taking care of. So they did a lot of things that lead me to believe that they passed, or at least Clive died.
Yeah,
that's sad. I didn't read it like that. Now I'm sad. Thanks.
Sorry.
I noticed he had the curse. His hand was turning to stone.
Yeah, he was turning to yeah. But then people had survived turning to stone. But for me, it was the combination of the star winking out of existence at that exact moment, right? And
Jill knew
that was Jill's wishing star, her wish was to be with Clive. And when the star goes away, her wish goes away, right? And then also the baby being born right after that scene too.
And Gav knew at that point too. When Jill knew, Gav knew, and they all kind of knew. And that's when I knew, and I was like, damn it. I was like, damn, no. You're taking everything from me, Final Fantasy. I will say this. This is the first, I believe, Final Fantasy game ever that snuck in them saying Final Fantasy in the game. He goes, this fantasy is final or whatever, and I'm like, they've never done that before. That was pretty hilarious.
That was what are we, some kind of Suicide Squad moment, right?
yeah, it was just that they called it out, and the book was called Final Fantasy too. That was
that's true. I'm trying to think if it's actually been explicitly referenced, and maybe I think you might be right.
I don't think it has been, man. I unless one of the earlier ones, but
I also really appreciate it from a storytelling standpoint that I was never really sure who the big bad was. You think it's his mom, and the mom was bad.
She was a great early villain, though.
Yes, but she wasn't the ultimate ultimate villain. And then you think, oh, maybe it's Barnabas. It's like, well, no, it's not Barnabas. There's somebody that he's reporting to. So I think they really did a good job of keeping the final big bad under the covers. And it's not one big bad you're chasing the entire game. It's revealed to you over time.
And that's kind of a Game of Thrones kind of thing, right? Where there's never just one bad guy. There's a lot of bad people. I mean, it goes from their mother. It goes from, Titan there, who I can't what was Titan's human name. I can't quite remember.
I can't.
But yeah, it was him for a while, right? Who that's because he destroyed the hideaway, the original hideaway, and so therefore he kind of became the bad guy. Also, there is a hilarious video out there that is so in Final Fantasy 13, the lightning one, they did a music video for it, and it was like a trailer, okay, and it used this song. The song was called My Hands, and it's this really funny, like, it's not a funny song, it's like a pop song, but it fit like the theme of what they were trying to do with Lightning Returns. Someone put the My Hands song on clips of the Titan guy because he loses his hands. He gets them cut off, and it's really quite funny. Especially the character, like the play arts figure of Titan that you can buy. He comes with like a bunch of different hands, and there's lots of jokes about him losing his hands and stuff. But regardless, the bad guy, you're right. You don't really know. They keep you guessing up until, I mean, you kind of know it's Ultimate at some point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, Ultimate's going to be the guy. But
this feels like a game that they've fell in love with Western media. And they kind of influence back and forth because there's a lot of influence between Japanese game devs and Western game devs now. This felt like the Final Fantasy take on a game like Dragon Age. But we mentioned the Game of Thrones influence, the kind of Dragon Age, a lot of betrayal, a lot of politics, which, Final Fantasy usually does actually quite a bit of as well. But they really went all in. I actually thought Ultima was the least interesting villain out of all of them, too. It was just like when they went full Final Fantasy.
They did go full Final Fantasy.
They went full Final Fantasy at the end, which it was fine. Like, I was expecting it. Like, it wasn't like a huge surprise to someone who's played other games, but I actually liked it when it was a little more grounded. Like, sure, you have magic and icons and all the other stuff, but I didn't need like evil space god to be the ultimate villain in this game.
But they went so grounded where they didn't actually have an airship, right? Like they weren't like doing that, or they didn't have Biggs and Wedge. Like they were trying to be more serious.
They had Biggs and Wedge
at a time, at a point. But I think with you.
But I did love the characters. The weakest character though I think was Jill. She was written very specifically as a love interest. She had some interesting moments, but I felt like she was the weakest part of the cast.
Yeah, they could have. I mean, and she's another one that, it would be neat to see more of her backstory. They could do, if you're not familiar with Final Fantasy 15, they did many side DLCs where they did, each character kind of got their own side story, which kind of, honestly, it was kind of a shame. You had to play all those to get the full story of Final Fantasy 15. But to kind of flesh out, I would love to see a Jill's story too. Like, I think she is a strong character, but she didn't really have enough time in the light.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Like, maybe that was it, because I liked her later on. I thought they gave her more interesting things to do, and she became a more interesting character. But maybe she just didn't have enough spotlight.
Just as long as Torgal didn't die. If that would happen, I would have taken out the disc and broken it in half.
I remember one of Marty's first comment is like after we'd all said, and you just started playing, he's like, your message was, nothing better happened to this dog.
Well, and not only did nothing happen to the dog, but like I feel the connection between the dog.
I loved the Torgal twist. That he was an icon too.
Yeah,
but we never saw it again.
No. Actually, after it unlocks, he will do it randomly in combat.
Yeah.
I guess I just never noticed him doing it. Yeah. Okay.
He turns into it randomly, but the little side quest with Torgal, Torgal was actually was looking for Clive like this whole time.
With the bracelet and also with that part.
And I thought that was a nice little thing. And then he gives a good goodbye to him. Like, he definitely got to pet the dog as much as you wanted, and he definitely loved on Torgal quite a bit. So Torgal was a great addition. I think nothing.
It was a nice way to build in I don't know where to go next mechanic. You can always just press the Torgal button, right? And he'll tell you where to go. Yeah.
After a big combat, you get turned around. It's like, where did I come from? And it's like, Torgal is like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, just Torgal me in the right direction.
I really love that. One thing I did not like is, oh my gosh, whoever designed the new hideaway map drove me insane.
Oh yeah. You had to go up and down, especially every time I had to go to the garden. I was like, I don't want to do any garden side quests.
It took me until the end of the game to realize that there was a loop that you could do. Like,
the top level, yeah, or the
the
second
top
level.
level, you
Yeah.
can come back and around and get over by the garden closer. I'm like, oh, you can go around this way. I didn't know that, but
Drove me. I had to pull up the map so many times. It's like I know I'm supposed to get to that red marker, but I don't know how to get over there, sort of deal. But yeah.
Nick, are you going to try Final Fantasy mode?
No, I'm good. I really enjoyed the story. I don't think it would have the same. I mean, obviously, I know where all the twists and turns are. It wouldn't have the same impact, and I think I would feel the repetition of the combat more and
now
kind of
because
like
you don't.
grinding out the side quests and stuff. Like I don't want to go through the second time.
Yeah,
I
you
loved
Final
my first
Fantasy
time through.
mode.
when you beat it, it
It's
unlocks.
like the new game plus.
Oh, you mean New Games Plus? Sort
No.
of deal.
Well,
No.
It's harder. It's a harder mode.
Yeah, there's New Game Plus and then there's Final Fantasy mode that unlocked, which Final Fantasy mode is a harder version. New Game Plus is just the game again with all your abilities and stuff. But then you can choose Final Fantasy mode, which apparently Ultimate Weapon is locked in there, which Marty, if you're not familiar, Ultimate Weapon is generally one of the strongest weapons you can get. It's hard to find. Or what?
Or spells.
Ultimate spell, yeah. And you can they put that in that mode. So, and I guess it's a harder version of the game, but
yeah. I wish it had unlocked at the start.
Yeah, I don't know that I will play it again anytime soon, but I do admit the past couple of days I've been kind of sad that it was over. Like I enjoyed just at night picking up and playing a couple hours, and I was kind of sad last night. So I'm going to go play. Oh, that's right. I finished it.
Yeah.
Because I did enjoy the characters. I liked that's the thing I liked most of all was those characters. It's like, I want to see somebody cosplay as Clive because I think that would be an amazing outfit to play.
I'll send you some pictures.
Yeah,
you've already seen it?
There've been some really good ones already. I've seen ones for Clive, Jill, and Sid already.
Yeah, I've seen some really, really good ones. But Marty, you kind of see now, like, you kind of these characters stick with you. The story sticks with you, and that's what Final Fantasy is all about. And this is why I love the series as much as I do. This is I feel like Nick loves the series as much as he does. And in 5 years, we'll start to get rumors and see what like Final Fantasy 17 is about, and who's the main character, and what's the setting, and what's the combat system, and that all just creates this fever of like, oh man, the froth is going. Like, I can't wait for whatever 17 is going to give us, because we know it's an experience like we just got done with 16, right? Like, but it's been doing this for me ever since 7. So for people that don't know, 7 was my first Final Fantasy game. I'm working back through the older ones, but I've played every single one and beaten every one since 7. But back in 97, that got me into RPGs, period. And same thing, the story, the characters, the music, everything hooked me. And then everyone after that, I'm like, oh, I'm in. So that leads into the final discussion which I'll have to sit out on this one. Where does this rank in your Final Fantasy games that you've played?
Top 5. So like Tactics, 6, 4, I think this, and then the original 7. So maybe 4 out of 5 for me.
Man, you rank those too easy.
I've been thinking about this. Like,
yeah, nice. He was prepared for this recording.
Yeah, for me it's tough, because it's like 7 was my first, therefore, and 7 instantly kind of became my favorite game of all time, and it's kind of sat there for a long time. And yeah, I mean, if I play classic 7 again right now, sure, it doesn't hold up as well, there's.
But when it landed, it was like a landmark game. Yeah,
and so that nostalgia holds a lot of, and what that series meant for me when I played it. So I don't know if anything's ever going to knock it off. I don't know if I could sit here and say 16 is better than 7 to me, just because it's like, I don't know. I mean, but I liked 16 more than 15. I liked the story more than I did in 15. I liked it more than 13. I thought, but I did like the story in 13, even though it was kind of like, that one was like more on rails even than this one. I liked it more in 12. I really did like 12 a lot. I don't think I liked it more. I like 10 quite a bit. 10's very, very good for me.
10 is good. 9 is good.
Gameplay wise, 9 might be my next favorite after 7 though. Like 9 is like.
Marty, if you like, old school. Sorry, yeah.
If you're gonna play an old school one, play 9.
But I've heard there's a potential remake of 9, right?
It might be worth waiting for the remake.
Rumor, yeah.
Have y'all played the remake of 7? Is it worth playing?
7's remake's amazing.
I
loved it.
Well, no, remake it. I'm gonna just play remake in quotes.
Okay.
listen,
Well, yeah.
yes, I understand why Nick's putting it in quotes because it does some interesting stuff with the story that is not in the original, and really plays with some ideas that I don't want to say anything.
Yeah, it's all spoilers to talk about.
It's all spoilers to talk about, but yes,
we're only going to spoil 16. We're not going to spoil 7.
Just understand this, Marty. If you play the 7 remake and you enjoy it, which I think you will, you played 16 and enjoyed it. I really do think you'll like the remake of 7. It's not you didn't really play 7. Okay, it's like if you beat remake, the one that's out now, you're playing a kind of a different game, like with the same characters.
And it's a portion of it, right? Because another one's coming out later this year.
Yeah, Rebirth is the next portion. Comes out.
It's only like a third of the original game
next year.
Well, I did buy the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster, and I have started playing 6 because that seems to be the more popular one in that package, which is 1 through 6. So I have started playing it.
Yeah, and the games. I mean, you play classic games, Marty. Graphics and old school mechanics, and on top of any of the new remakes or remasters, even like they all have kind of quality of life improvements, whether it's turn off random battles or speed up combat, or to at least just get you through the game. Like, go see the stories, like play 7 and just fast forward, through some of the longer combats, or turn off the battles if you don't want to be stopped, because that was what really slows down a lot of the earlier games, is just the random encounters. If you don't need to level up, you just have to. You don't have a choice.
Yeah. And they do put that in the remaster. With a press of one button, you can turn off all random encounters, which is pretty nice too.
Yeah, because you get to choose when you want to go like level up. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go wander around, level up now.
Well, even in 6, you can increase how much experience you get per kill. You can like get 4 times the experience and level up as fast as.
Well, that's nice, because there are times, like, if you want to see the later content, like the special dungeons and stuff, you have to grind for it. At least back in the day, you did. Now you just 4 times experience, I guess.
Now you just cheat. Which theoretically it is. If somebody said, "Oh, you didn't really experience Final Fantasy 6," I would not have a dog in that fight, because I would agree. No, you're right. I did game the system because they allowed me to, and it is a different experience.
I don't think grinding random encounters for like 10 hours or whatever is going to hurt your experience.
I played the original Pokemon. I know about the whole grind.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
the 8 remaster is supposed to be pretty decent. It's just clean. They cleaned up the graphics a little bit, and I liked 8. Not once I played through that's again, they're all flawed, right? I'm going to tell you right now, Tears of the Kingdom is still my game of the year. Like, Final Fantasy 16 is good, and I love it, and it's going to hold its place in my heart forever. But like, it ain't Tears of the Kingdom good. Yeah. Sorry.
16 is my game of the year so far, but Baldur's Gate 3 is coming in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, is a upcoming topic I want to talk to y'all about when we get towards the end of the year, like December. 2023 may be shaping out to be one of the best video game years ever. Not a topic for now. It's just talking about how amazing this year has been. Yeah. And I'm really excited to see these other games on the horizon come out and how they're going to be. So let's just put it on the calendar sometime in December. Let's all get back together. Maybe our other co-host David Waybright.
Yeah, we'll bring David back.
Jump in on this and talk about, is 2023 possibly the best year for video games, if in a very long time, if not ever. So
I gotta look, there are some pretty strong years out there. Yes, like it's easy to say that there are some great games coming out right now, and this is a very strong year, but I think we could put together a case for some other years if we look at them deeper, especially now that we're like years past, right? Like, we
had some dry years over COVID though, so this feels very significant.
Pre-COVID we had dry years. I think there's been, there's been dry years for sure, but even looking, man, we'll get into it. We'll get into another video.
Exactly. I didn't want to open a can of worms too soon, just talking about how great of a year this has been. So, I mean, because it's amazing. You just had a great experience with Final Fantasy 16. It's like, nope, not game of the year. Nick's going, Final Fantasy 16 is great, but there's another game coming out, might be my game of the year, which is just is great indeed. So,
no, listen, I knew when I finished, before I played 16 and when I finished Tears of the Kingdom, I knew right then and there, I was like, this is the game of the year. And I'm telling you guys right now, like, yes, I know, I'm thinking Baldur's Gate's going to be amazing, and I'm sure, but I don't think Tears is very good.
I think Tears is an incredible game. It is. It's a monumental achievement. It's fantastic. But Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that speaks to me, like, at the core of my soul.
When we think about
Not
awards,
Armored Core 6 that's coming out right
Armored
after
Core
that?
6 might be like a game of the year in like a week or year, but it might not even be top 5 this year.
Wow. See, that's what I'm talking about. And again, that's a whole nother discussion for another time. So Final Fantasy 16, where do
Go
we
play it.
land? I'm still
Great.
landing at 8.5.
Yeah, 8.5. I'll go play it. It's outstanding. If you want an amazing story, if you want characters you're gonna, really fall in love with and spend 50 to 60 hours with, play Final Fantasy. This is a great Final Fantasy. You never played one, or if you played all of them.
I did just the main in 35.
Yeah, you can do it in 30, 40 hours. Yeah.
No, I was at like 60 hours.
I think I was at 50, but I did like pretty much every side quest.
I did every side quest.
Yeah. And I didn't. So
right before Origin, the last quest, you get a quest, Origin. I went, it pulls out and there's like 7 side quests in the hideout. And I was like, no. I was like, I want to beat it, but I know it's now hours away because I got to do all these side quests. That was really funny. But there were some good side quests in there.
Yeah. So for me, who's never played a Final Fantasy game, I loved it for the characters and the story. I get it. I'm going to start playing some of these older Final Fantasy games. And for sure, years from now, when Final Fantasy 17 starts being talked about, I'll get in with the fervor also. Who knows? Maybe I'll own one of those amazing collector's editions that Nick has there.
The statue is so cool.
You'll see. You'll see.
Yeah, let's see it real quick. Yeah, that is.
Oh, yeah, get that up there. Very cool.
Which now playing the story, you know who those characters are. Yeah. It's like you just love it even more.
Oh, one thing. My wife usually has like 0 interest in the video games I played. Every time I was playing Final Fantasy 16, she would sit and watch me play it. Yeah, and she would, and if she missed a session, she'd ask me what happened in the plot.
My wife was the same way.
Yeah,
my wife was like,
mine could not have given 2 shits.
So there you go. All right, Final Fantasy 16. Have you played it? What are your thoughts? Let us know down in the comments. Guys, it has been great. Thank you for pulling me into the Final Fantasy fold. I'm a fan. I will for sure
welcome,
be playing.
Welcome, Marty. We're glad to have you. We are glad. It is so nice that, I mean, the more the merrier. And you're gonna have tons of even regardless of going back and trying to play some. Yeah, there's gonna be we'll probably see a 9 remake. We'll probably see some other stuff come out before then. That'll keep you busy up until there's many years between these main lines, but they give you so much extra stuff. It's there's lots of Final Fantasy to play. Maybe go play 14.
Yeah, no, I do say 6. Though. That Nick's #1 game, I have played that one, and I hope they re-release Final Fantasy Tactics.
Same.
Yeah, Tactics.
I'd love to see a re-release of that.
It was on one of the NVIDIA leaks, so I have high hopes.
Yep. All right, y'all. This has been Matt, Nick, and Marty. Thanks for watching.